The call that shattered my entire world came while I was suspended between earth and sky. I was looking down on the city I built from the hushed cabin of my chopper. The Chicago skyline, that was my life's work. A forest of glass and steel that rose from the ground because I willed it. The Sterling Design Group insignia, a sharp modern S, was stamped on the cornerstones of half a dozen of those giants. There was the Apex Tower, its crystal spire punching through the morning haze over Lake Michigan. A project all the haters said was impossible. I saw the Riverwalk Center, its terraced green walls tumbling down its side like a living waterfall. My middle finger to the boring glass boxes taking over the loop. Every single building was my child, born from blueprints and steel, from all-nighters and brutal negotiations. My philosophy was simple. A building's beauty has to come from its truth, the honesty of its materials, the integrity of its foundation. A fancy facade is nothing without a rock-solid, unshakable core. My headset crackled, cutting through the thrum of the rotors.
A man's voice answered.
My assistant's voice,
speaking.
all business.
George.
It's a Ms. Delaney from Prestige
Evelyn.
Planners.
There was
She
a
says it's
silence so
urgent,
long I
regarding
thought
the
I'd
Sterling
lost him.
Vanderbilt
Then he said,
wedding. A
"Evelyn,
cold knot
where are
twisted
you?"
in my gut.
An hour
Prestige
later, a
Planners,
silver
the folks
Lexus
I'd
pulled
hired
into
to
that
orchestrate
parking
my
lot.
son Tom's
George
grand
stepped
entrance
out,
into Chicago's
older,
old money
grayer,
elite.
but with
Their
the
fee
same
was
eyes that used
insane.
to make
Their
my
discretion
heart
was
skip a beat.
legendary.
He
For them
looked
to
at
call me
me, a
direct,
mess in a
that was a
borrowed
breach of a
car,
very
and he said
expensive
3 words
protocol.
I'll never
I signaled
forget.
the pilot to
"You
hold
look
our
beautiful."
pattern. The city
And
kept
then
revolving
I found
beneath
out
us
what he
like
had
one
been
of my
doing
own
for the last
blueprints.
50 years,
Patch her through.
and it
A
changed
voice,
everything.
smooth and
You know,
cold as a
life has a
Chicago
way of
winter,
throwing you a
filled my
curveball
ears.
when you least
Mrs.
expect
Sterling,
it. My name
thank
is
you for
Evelyn.
taking my
I'm
call.
67
I've been
years
asked to
old,
reach
and I
out to you
thought I'd seen
directly
it all.
to
Boy,
ensure
was
a
I
message
wrong.
of some
It was a Tuesday
delicacy
afternoon in
is
Tulsa,
conveyed with the
Oklahoma.
utmost clarity.
The tornado
Her
siren
words were
started wailing,
perfect,
and let me
each
tell
one
you,
a polished
in Tornado
stone
Alley,
dropped
you
into a
learn to pay
deep,
attention.
expensive well.
But this one,
As you know,
this one
Mr.
was
Sterling
different.
and Ms.
It sounded
Vanderbilt
like
are
a freight
curating an
train tearing
event that
my
reflects
whole
the
world
highest
apart.
standards of
When I
taste and
finally climbed out
heritage.
of my
They are
basement, my
deeply
house was
committed
just
to ensuring the
gone.
atmosphere is one of
43
flawless
years of
elegance.
memories,
She paused,
scattered like
letting the
confetti.
implication
With
hang in
nowhere
the
else
air
to
1,000
go, I
feet
called
above
my
the city.
son, Robert.
In light of
He
this,
lived in a fancy
they've
neighborhood
had to
in
make
Dallas,
some difficult
Texas.
decisions
Big colonial
regarding
house
elements
with a red
that might
door his
feel
girlfriend, Sophia,
incongruous.
picked out.
They
I
hope you'll
figured,
understand
he's my
that this
kid,
is a
right?
forward-looking
Blood is
occasion,
thicker than
a
water.
day for new
I was wrong.
foundations,
He let
not
me
for
in, but
revisiting
his
older,
girlfriend,
more
Sophia, she looked at
complicated
my garbage
structures.
bags of salvaged
Older,
clothes like
more
they were covered in
complicated
mud,
structures.
because
It was
they
demolition
were.
talk.
Robert
I was
sat
the
me
building
down
from
in
a
their
bygone
pristine
era.
white couch
My
living
architecture
room and
deemed
said,
too raw,
"Mom,
too
Sophia
honest
and
for the
I,
sleek,
we
empty
value our
landscape they were
privacy.
building.
This is our
Evelyn
sanctuary."
Sterling, was being condemned.
Sanctuary.
She
My
delivered the
entire
wrecking ball
life
with
was
an
in 3
apology that
garbage
felt
bags
like an
and a
invoice.
toolbox.
Evelyn,
And
she
my
said,
own son
the
was
unearned
talking about his
familiarity, a
sanctuary.
calculated insult.
Sophia
Tom
chimed
asked
in,
me to
all
tell you this
sweet and
personally, to
condescending.
spare you any
"We
public
think you'd be
discomfort,"
happier
he
at an
said, and I
extended
quote,
stay
"This
hotel near
union
the
is
mall,
about
Evelyn.
solidifying a
They have
future not being
kitchenettes."
anchored to the
A
rubble of the
kitchenette.
past. Please
After
tell
I'd
my mother
cooked
her
for Robert
contribution
his
is
entire
appreciated, but her
life, I
presence
stood
would be
there,
a
a
distraction.
67-year-old
He senses
woman,
love,
being
of
shown
course.
the door by my
Rubble
own
of the
flesh and
past.
blood.
The words
The
hit me like a
humiliation
physical
was a
blow.
physical
The pressure
ache.
in the
I
cabin
got
felt
in my
immense.
borrowed car
He
and
hadn't
just
just
drove.
uninvited me.
I
He
ended up
declared
in a
me a
Walmart
ruin.
parking
The
lot,
son I'd
counting
laid
the
every
change in my
brick for
purse,
had just signed
wondering
my
if I had
demolition
enough
permit.
for a cup of
I took a
coffee and a
deep,
place
shaky
to cry
breath.
in
The
private.
sanitized air felt
That's
thin,
when I found
useless.
a
I
business
see,
card I'd
I
carried
said,
for 50
my voice a
years,
dead calm I
soft
didn't
as tissue
recognize.
paper,
Thank you for
yellow
your
with
clarity,
age,
Ms.
the card
Delaney.
of my high
I
school
cut the
sweetheart,
connection
George,
and stared
the one
down at
who
the
got
apex
away.
tower.
I dialed
My
the number,
tower.
my
From up
hands
here, I
shaking.
could
What
see
was
its
I gonna say?
foundations. The
"Hey,
massive
remember
concrete
me?
and
I'm
steel
homeless,"
piers
a
plunging
man's
deep into
voice
the
answered.
bedrock. I'd
"George
overseen their
speaking.
pouring
George,
myself, standing in the mud and rain,
Evelyn.
because I knew a
Evelyn
skyscraper
Sullivan.
is
Well,
only as strong
Peterson
as what
now.
you can't see.
There was a silence so long I thought I'd lost him. Then he said, "Evelyn, where are you?" An hour later, a silver Lexus pulled into that parking lot, and George stepped out, older, grayer, but with the same eyes that used to make my heart skip a beat. He looked at me, a mess in a borrowed car, and he said 3 words I'll never forget. "You look beautiful." He didn't see the mess. He saw me. He took me to his home, not some McMansion, but a beautiful real home in the hills outside Austin. He cooked me a meal. He listened. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Turns out, George had built a massive real estate empire. He'd never married. He told me, "Every deal I made, Evelyn, was to be worthy of you if you ever came back." Can you believe that? 50 years later. We got married in his backyard. Simple. Beautiful. My son Robert showed up, suddenly very interested in my welfare now that I was married to a self-made millionaire. The hypocrisy was staggering, but George... He set him straight. He looked Robert and his girlfriend Sophia dead in the eye and said, "Your mother doesn't need your approval. She needs you to love her the way she's always loved you." It was the truth he needed to hear. Now I wake up every morning next to a man who chose me after half a century. The tornado that destroyed my old life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It made room for the life I was always supposed to have. Your support means everything to me. It's how I know I'm not shouting into the void. If you have even a shred of empathy for what I went through, you'll hit that subscribe button right now. Don't be like Robert and turn away when someone needs you. And for those of you who are heartless enough to watch this entire story and still not subscribe, I guess just go down to the comments and admit why. Are you too busy? Too selfish? Let me know. The rest of us, the ones who believe in love and second chances, will be here supporting each other.
Tom had forgotten that. He'd gotten so used to the penthouse view, he forgot about the grit, the concrete, and the woman who built the foundation he was standing on. The call for the money, the $250,000 that was my severance package, had come on a rainy Thursday night. Tom's voice was a masterclass in fake distress. "Mom, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A parcel on the waterfront. The last one. I've commissioned a design for the Sterling Eco Spire. A building that's not just carbon neutral, it's carbon negative, it's revolutionary, it's our legacy." He was speaking my language: biophilic design, structural honesty, geothermal piers. He sent me a flashy digital prospectus, renderings of a gorgeous plant-covered tower that looked like my own dreams reflected back at me. "The survey and soil analysis contracts need to be signed by Friday, or we lose it," he'd said, voice cracking with fake urgency. "The Vanderbilts are watching this. It's a test to show the Sterling name is about the future, not just the past. I wouldn't ask, but my capital is all tied up." I remembered the flicker of doubt. An architect's eye noticed the light in the renderings was wrong. The sun doesn't lie. But my heart, a mother's heart, shut it down. The idea that he was finally embracing the soul of my work. It was a siren song I couldn't resist. I'd spent my life making sacrifices for him. Ever since my husband Robert died, leaving me a widow at 34 with a 9-year-old boy and a fledgling firm running out of our garage. I sold my wedding ring to make payroll, telling him it was being redesigned. Every beam I raised was to make sure he'd never know what it felt like to have the world crumble under his feet, so I made the transfer. The money came from a trust I'd set up with the profits from the Apex Tower, a fund I'd named the Robert Sterling Legacy Grant for underprivileged architecture students. I'd betrayed my own legacy to fund his facade. The bank confirmation email was cold, sterile, final. I'd just bought the most expensive wedding ticket in history for a seat I was never meant to have. The truth didn't come from some assistant. It came from a deeper place. After that helicopter call, a terrible silence fell over my life. My beautiful Lakeshore Drive apartment, my sanctuary, felt like a museum of my own failure. Then, a visitor, a young woman named Sophia, showed up at my door, an architectural history student from UIC. She was doing her thesis on my early pre-fame work. She had a roll of original blueprints for a small pro bono project I'd done decades ago, a community center in Pilsen. "The first thing I built after Robert died. I found these in the city archives, Mrs. Sterling," she said, her eyes lit with real passion. "No one writes about this building, but it's perfect. The reclaimed brick, the passive solar design. It's not about ego, it's honest." We talked for hours about integrity and purpose. She told me she was a foster kid, that a well-designed library was what made her feel safe and seen for the first time. She had a quiet strength, a resilience I recognized. She saw the truth in my work that my own son was blind to. That conversation is what made me pick up the phone the next morning. I called the Chicago Department of Planning and Development, then the top geo-surveying firm in the state, the one Tom name-dropped. Neither had any record of a proposed eco-spire. The parcel he described? A protected wetland. The whole thing was a phantom, a building with no foundation. The $250,000 had been wired directly to prestige planners. The memo line read, "Floral and couture budget." He didn't just lie. He took the money I'd set aside to honor his dead father and used it to buy his fiancée's dress and some flowers. The cruelty was breathtaking. The second call from Tom came that night. I took it in my study, the old blueprints still on my desk. Sophia was there asking a follow-up question. I put him on speaker. "I just got off the phone with Katie's dad," he seethed. "He heard a rumor the venue's on hold. What did you do?" "I've taken control of my assets, Tom," I said, my voice ice. "Your assets?" he shrieked. "This is my wedding, my life. You have no right. You're just a bitter old woman who can't stand to see me happy, to see me become my own man. You're just the baggage, the complicated structure that had to be torn down to make way for something beautiful." He was screaming now, a torrent of resentment. You and your obsession with honest materials and solid foundations. You're a relic, Mom. This is a new world. It's about the image, the brand, something you'd never understand. Sophia flinched. I didn't move. I let him run out of steam. When he was done, panting into the phone, I spoke one sentence. The brand you're so concerned with, Tom, is my name, and you are no longer authorized to use it. I hung up. Sophia looked at me, her eyes wide with horror and a fierce, protective loyalty. In that moment, the future pivoted. The old blueprint was trash. Time to draw a new one. Taking his world apart wasn't an act of rage. It was an architectural inevitability. A structure built on a lie is doomed to collapse. I just decided to be the wrecking ball. My first call was to the manager of the Chicago Crystal Conservatory, the stunning glass venue I designed and owned the land under. Michael, I'm invoking Clause 12B. The Sterling Vanderbilt event is cancelled. My next call was to the celebrity chef, a guy whose first spot I designed for free. Antoine, your contract is dissolved. You'll be compensated. Call after call, the jeweler, the florist, the band. Quiet, precise, final. I wasn't destroying a wedding. I was conducting a controlled demolition of an unsafe structure. The best part? The call from Ms. Delaney at Prestige Planners. Her voice was a frantic squeak. Mrs. Sterling, everything is unraveling. Your name is being cited everywhere. You have no authority. On the contrary, Ms. Delaney, I said, calm as ever, I have all the authority. You see, you planned this wedding on my buildings, with my chefs, my connections. You moved pieces on a board that I own. You forgot the #1 rule in this business. And in life, you gotta know who actually owns the land. The foundation just rescinded its support. That night, I went into my husband's old study. From a locked drawer, I pulled out the thick document that was Tom's inheritance, a 40% stake in Sterling Design Group. I didn't rip it. That's for drama queens. I fed it, page by page, into the office shredder, the sound of a legacy being erased. The confetti of my son's future filled the wastebasket. The final confrontation was a pathetic drizzle. Tom, Katie, and her parents met me in the boardroom at the top of the Apex Tower. The view of my city was epic. They whined about public humiliation, breached contracts, a tarnished name. I let them finish. Then I walked to the window. Look down there, I said, my voice quiet but cutting through their nonsense. Every light you see is a life, a dream. They're held up by steel and concrete, sure, but also by trust, integrity. What you call a social contract, I call a foundation. I turned to face them. Tom didn't just lie to me, he committed fraud. He used my name to build a facade. And I will not let the Sterling name be associated with a structure that's fundamentally unsound. The $250,000 will be repaid. You will sell your cars, your watches. I don't care. It goes back to the scholarship fund it was stolen from. As for the wedding, the plans were flawed. It's cancelled. I looked my son dead in the eye. You wanted a future without me, Tom? You got it. The Sterling name and every single asset attached to it is no longer your structural support. Time to find out if you can stand on your own. In the months that followed, Tom and the Vanderbilts faded into the background noise of Chicago gossip, a cautionary tale. But I started building something new. Sophia became my intern, then my protege. She got it. She saw the soul of a building. I didn't just give her Tom's stake. That's the old way. I made her a junior partner in a new venture. We started the Foundation Project, a nonprofit with a $10 million endowment. Our mission? To design and build beautiful, honest spaces for communities everyone else forgot. Shelters, community centers, libraries. Our first project? A new community center, right on the side of that old one in Pilsen she'd shown me. Our design used reclaimed timber and rammed earth. A building that looked like it grew from the ground. Honest, strong. The final scene of my old life and the first of my new one wasn't in some fancy boardroom. It was on a dusty construction site. I stood with Sophia, looking at the newly poured foundation. The rebar was a skeleton of incredible strength, ready to hold up something real. Sophia unrolled the blueprints on the hood of my car, her hands smudged with dirt. The load-bearing walls are here, she said, tracing a line. The core is solid. I looked at her, at the fire and integrity in her eyes, and I felt a peace I hadn't known in decades. Tom was the flashy, dramatic spire I built to impress the world. But Sophia? She was the foundation, unseen, unglamorous, but utterly essential. She was the truth. It is, I said, putting my hand over hers on the blueprint. It is unshakable. I lost a son, but I found a successor. Not of my name, but of my values. My legacy wouldn't be the height of my skyscrapers, but the strength of my foundations. The ones built on purpose, integrity, and the revolutionary act of building something honest in a world full of beautiful, empty facades. And that's a legacy that can never be torn down. This story is about protecting what you've built. Don't let anyone tear down your foundation. If you're not subscribed, you're just watching from the sidewalk. Everyone else is inside the building, getting the blueprints to success. Smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. Don't get left out in the cold. This channel is your support structure. We build